video, I'm going to show you how to replace your carburetor on your ATV, or as we like to say, replace your ATV on your carburetor. I did this previously already, but this is where the gas line attaches from the tank, and it would normally come up right here. And so I already disconnected that and held it up so that the gas wouldn't spill everywhere. However, that is probably the first thing you should do. There's a hose clamp on here, loosen that, and then pull that off. And once again, this is the gas into the carburetor that you want to pull off first. First thing you got to do is loosen the clamps that go to both the engine and the air filter, and that's with a Phillips head screwdriver. That's what I like to do because then it's easy to move the carb up and down depending on the rest of the screws. This ATV that I'm replacing the carburetor on here is a Suzuki Quadsport 250cc, and it's 2008. So yours might be a little bit different, but overall, most of the ATVs are pretty similar in how they go together. It's just a matter of where the bolts are or something like that that might change. This is the clamp right here where my finger is that you want to loosen in order to slide the carb out towards the back of the ATV. Those are just 2 Phillips head screws right at the top, which is what my screwdriver's on. And you don't need to take it off, you just need to loosen enough that it will be loose like that and you can pull it out. This up here is the other one that you need to loosen. I actually already loosened it, but that one's there, and then there's one more up here. There's also this hose. It might be easier to take this off first, but this black hose should just pull off, and that's just an extra air vent as far as I know into the carburetor. And then down here, this is also a drain, so you should be able to just pull that off the bottom, and that should be tight by this Phillips head screw right at the end of my screwdriver. If that's not tight, then the gas will leak down, but this is, again, one hose that you can kind of just pull off. I pulled off the cap to the top of the throttle cable. This is where your cable attaches by the throttle. And once again, I just pulled off the cap. It should be 3 Phillips head screws, and that just keeps on the cap. From there, what I'm also gonna do is take the throttle cable completely out, and that'll allow you, once the carburetor's out, to be able to maneuver it better, because this will prevent you because it's still attached to the carb. So I'll take that off now. This part slides right up out of the notch, and then from there is a matter of getting the cable over and out. So you want to push it right in between where my screwdriver is right now. You want to push the cable around to that point, and then it should pop right straight up. At this point, you just want to leave this loose. Sometimes it's stuck in the column or placed a couple places there, but leave this loose so you can have some room down at the carburetor to work. Another thing on this side of the carburetor would be you need to loosen this part. However, you don't want to loosen the actual hose part. You want to get down here where there's a hex head, and it should be on a 250cc, it should be a 14 millimeter. Might be different for yours, but you want to get it right inside there where you can turn it and essentially loosen that one piece. You can see I just got a turn on that. I need a couple more turns here. This you can just leave hanging here, and we'll go back into the other carburetor once that's in. If you pull it at the right angle, you should be able to get it out of that front piece. And then once again, you can get it to slide out this side. And as I mentioned before, the throttle cable on the other side of the carburetor will still be attached, so you gotta feed it back down through the front of the ATV. Just like the top of the ATV, you wanna take this as the other end of the throttle cable and bring that around as well. So I'm gonna do that now. Instead of threading it off here, I'm going to take it off at this spot. So you wanna bring it about this point and it should pop up. There it is. So at this point, this little top part is able to come off, so it should slide right out just like that. And then this is its own piece. You want to save that as well. And then from there, you can loosen this part and slide it out, no problem. That's how you get the ATV carburetor off. Once again, it could be different for your ATV, but follow those basic steps and then you're ready to put in your new one. So once you have your new carburetor in, you definitely want to take that and match it up with your old one to make sure it's the same. The intake and the outtake sizes should be exact to your carburetor that you previously had. So that's number one thing to check. From there, the next steps would be, for me at least on this 250, would be hooking up the throttle cable. And then I want to make sure to take out this plug either now or later, but this right here is to the choke, and I actually have a choke that runs all the way up to the handlebars. So what I'll end up doing is taking this piece off and then putting in the piece I have, and it will be easier to do once it's in place. So I'm gonna wait on that, but it is something that you definitely need to make note of. Other than that, you wanna hook up the throttle cable. Once again, that should be loose from disconnecting it from before. And then there's a little cable here that you'll feed down through this tube and hook it up with another piece that came in the kit. So I'll do that right now. Stay with me, dude. Stay with me. Once you have this piece in correctly, this you're going to want to thread on to the top of the threaded piece on top of the throttle inside here. And ultimately you're gonna have to adjust that later anyway. So just get it threaded on so that it won't fall off when you're installing it. And then once it's hooked up top, you can kind of play with it to see where the throttle goes in and out once you have the lever hooked up. Now at this point, you wanna throw on the gasket and the cover, which should have came with the kit. So there's this little rubber gasket. You're gonna wanna place right in this groove right there, nice and neatly. And then from there, there's actually a little cover that goes on top. You can't mess it up because there's a little pin spot. Just make sure the gasket goes down with it. And then there's 3 screws, just Phillips head. Those you need to put in after. You can actually tighten these down once the carburetor's in the ATV. However, this kind of allows it for nothing to be knocked around inside while you're trying to finagle it in. So I'll probably tighten them all the way after. What I'm doing is just getting them hand tight at the moment. Now you're good to go and install the carburetor the way it should be. So once again, I need this piece right inside this rubber, which is the air filter side. So let me get that in there. That's how you install your carburetor, folks.
Gotta make sure you lay down on the ATV.
See how that's kind of not really where it should be? This part I'm touching should be inside that rubber sleeve. So I'm just gonna work it back and forth. Maybe use a screwdriver in a minute here to get that rubber piece nice and over. Alrighty, once it's on there snug, you can see it's on there much better now and covering where it should be. These clamps right up here, that's a Phillips, and then there's one on this side as well. You're gonna wanna tighten those. So I mentioned before that this piece is actually for the choke, and my choke, just right here, is goes all the way up to the handlebars. So I'm gonna wanna thread this in to where this black piece is here. So I'm gonna take out that black piece right now. I don't want it in there. There will be a spring in there, so just be careful that you don't lose it. Right inside where the choke should be, you'll see that gold piece all the way in there with a flat head. You actually need to remove that as well if you have this little needle on your choke. So once again, this is my choke, and that's what I'm trying to put in, but that gold piece cannot be inside there. So there's a few different choke types. If you've seen a video of Tarpey's ATV, there's actually one that you just pull out a little lever. Mine doesn't have that, and instead it has this needle that goes all the way to the top of the handlebar. So once again, I just checked the old carburetor and made sure that this little gold piece was not in that one. And so I just want to thread that out. All right, now I'm just installing my choke, trying to make sure that the threads line up correctly. Typically there might be some plastic caps on top of the little nipples on the carburetor. So you're gonna want to pull those off. And this is where the pictures come in handy from the old carburetor. But if you know where everything goes, then you're golden. Last thing you gotta hook up is your gas line. Mine is actually still flowing because I don't really know which way the dial goes to off. So I'm just gonna send it right onto that plug. Here goes like $5 in gas. Now I need to tighten the 3 bolts that go to the throttle on the other side once I have the throttle back up. So at this point, you should be good down here by the carburetor itself. And now it's about hooking back up the throttle up here and tightening the 3 bolts on the other side. So this is the top part of the throttle cable I mentioned. and you're going to want to hook this back up, pulling it and attaching it inside this little lever here. It is easy to grab a pair of pliers on the cable itself, extend it, grab the pliers there, and then that'll allow you to stick it right into this a little bit easier. You can see that it sits down in there, and then this notch needs to go in that slot right down there, like so. Beautiful. And then there's a little rubber piece here that you can spin just to have it sit right in place there. Make sure it works. Once again, you want to hear the click up here, but you also want to hear a movement down by the carburetor to make sure it's actually pulling that piece inside the carburetor, and then you can tighten those 3 bolts. That's all for this Burnout Extra. Hopefully that helped you replace your carburetor. Even if you don't have a Suzuki, the steps are very similar. The best thing to do is take pictures before so that you know how to install everything after. As for me, this carb has treated me super well. It's now lasted, oh geez, I think 13 or 14 years this carburetor has lasted. Almost all the bolts on it are stripped. It's not running well. It's corroded inside. And I'm willing to just huck this thing in the woods. So maybe you'll see that on a Burnout Extra in the future. But once again, that's all for this video. Be sure to check out our website that was redesigned, as well as the merch section. We have new merch with awesome new colors, and you can get some pretty sweet swag. So go to burnoutshow.com/store, and you can see everything there. Choose something of your liking. It's very affordable and helps support us as well. So be sure to check that out. That's all for now, and thank you for watching.